Oh, this segment is called Downriver, and I think I named it that because I couldn't think of anything else. The river is of course, the deepest part of the canyon, and it's coming from right to left in this picture. So the right side is to the east, and I'm working on all these hills that have a bit of a green cast from just really rough brush and some grass that grows on these hillsides until they move into the cliffs, which is where all the rock is and all the stuff that's fallen down and accumulated slag over the years. And I've tried a lot of things in terms of my approach to this. Um, and now I'm working in a kind of a greenish grayish color that is the color that kind of predominates in the distance for the to indicate the brush and on the hillside. But there's a bunch of the earth tones that are kind of coming through it. So I am layering it as I do with pretty much everything. And this was actually very taxing because I got to several kind of points where I felt like I want to quit and try a different strategy because it was giving me fits, and I wasn't quite sure how to proceed with it. And then I finally kind of came up with a plan, and that was to work light and then go to the dark for an accent so I could delineate the shapes better because if you're just applying light everywhere, you kind of lose track of what your drawing is supposed to be and where the shadows belong and so forth. And so it was easiest for me to go light, then kind of put in a dark, and then come back from midtones, and that seemed to be the trick. Um, and I constantly have to remind myself too, where are you working in the painting? Like right there, I'm in the far distance, so I can't get too much color back there, and I don't want it to be too specific. I also want I don't want a real deep, dark accents on anything, so everything is diluted. And if I want deeper color, I just put on another layer. Frequently painting and drawing, and then using the masking uh, fluid, the art gum, whatever you want to call it. I've always called it frisket film, but actually a frisket film is a sheet, but you can also get liquid frisket, and that's what this is liquid frisket. And I'm using it quite a lot in the distance and on the cliffs, just because it creates good textures and separates areas if you want to do kind of washes. Um, if you get things wet, it can run into areas where you don't want any paint, like on the door. So I block off the door with it. But there are times when you want control, and when you want control, you want your paper drier. So hair dryer works for me, and I'm using it all the time. Because if I had to wait for the paper to dry naturally every time, I'd be forever. Uh, and it takes me long enough as it is. So that speeds things up. And you can see your colors, what they're going to look like, because when you apply them, of course, they're darker than they will be in the finished work. So now I'm taking off the liquid frisket, and it's going to leave some light areas that sometimes I just put water over the surrounding area and kind of blend it into those spaces where I was left it light, and that seems to work pretty well. Other times I'll apply a little bit more color. This is really a heavy paper. It's, as I mentioned, is 300 weight, and that seems sturdy enough. I mean, there's 400, which stands up in the corner all by itself. But I don't have it on this one. I like it though, but this is 300 is plenty tough enough for this process, and it'll withstand several applications. Now, if you let it dry on there too long, though, it could give you some headaches removing it, but I generally get it off pretty quick. So what I'm going to do here is continue working my way down in this doorway space, and in the foreground, or the area closest to us in the open door, is a big kind of a reddish rock. It's not actually reddish. It's more orange, I suppose. Burnt sienna and orange, yellow ochre combinations, and even a little bit of a hint of crimson worked into it. So you'll see that happen further on in this video. And I got to apologize for my lighting here. I don't know what I did differently. I must have had one overhead light turned off for a period, because you'll see a little change in the coloring, but hopefully that won't be too much of a distraction. So I'll put on the music and you'll watch me plod along, and I'm going to be working my way down in this space and trying to finish it. And a lot of times what I do on a big project like this is I feel like I have paintings within paintings, and this is a perfect example because it's already sectioned off for me just because of working through a window of the door and the open door. And I feel like, okay, I need to give this so much attention and give it its due, as though it were its own painting. And if I can apply that philosophy to the whole thing, then I won't be neglecting any part of it, and I won't regret it later. I'll think, I did what I wanted in that space, and I didn't quit on it until I got the result I was looking for. And then your mission is to make it all tie together. So that's how I approach it, and I work from top to bottom and generally left to right, though sometimes it'll be right to left. That part doesn't matter so much, but I just don't like to go too far down in the picture plane, because then you're laying your arm across everything, and that I don't care to do. So this way I can protect my paper. I've got a big piece of cardboard for my palette there, and I've got my test paper right below. And if I've got any reference materials, I can lay them down, and I'm not too worried about things getting wrecked underneath. I also have the sky covered with plastic, because that's one area where if you splatter in the sky, and I've done this where you don't notice it. I've accidentally, I don't know, when mixing or dropping a brush or whatever, something is splattered up into the blue into the sky, and it dries in there, and then you try to lift it and fix it. It's very frustrating, because it almost always changes the look, because you could have another color up there that doesn't belong, and trying to lift it out, you're going to pick up a bunch of the color that you already applied, and so don't want that. It's much easier to just cover it up, which I've done. And I'll probably cover the whole upper part of the painting, although I'm not too worried about splashing and anything like that over these cliffs or over the door or the wood, because those have rough textures, and so you can always camouflage it. But in the sky, you've got a problem if you have a big accident up there. So like I say, I'll be putting on the music here. I'll speed it up a little bit, and I'll come back when I've got something of interest. Okay, so I've been working on these pine trees and the limbs that are reaching into the frame. I've used some resist material on a few places, and trying to get these pine needles and these weathered trees to look like they do on location, and struggling a bit with the color. I like parts of the one in the distance. The one in the foreground, what I'm doing is I put in my undertones, bit of yellow ochre, and a little bit of hooker's green, touch of burnt umber, and variations of that to create a very light green. And I'm not being very specific with it. As I work on top of that, I'll add some medium tones in the green using some sap, some olive, some hooker's green, and a touch of yellow. And then also in the creating the limbs, I'm using some burnt sienna, some crimson, some sepia, and so some of that, of course, is dark, and it's all has a light source. So the light in this picture, being more in that it's morning, it's coming from the east, so to the right side of the picture, to the left. So shadows are going to be cast right to left, and everything is highlighted on the right side if it's in the sun. And so I got to be conscious of that. So I'm trying to leave some light. And I left the background areas where these trees are, I left that actually pretty light because I don't want it to interfere with the color. So it's probably next to impossible to fill in a background around these trees, because you don't want to wash over the top of it, and you don't just want to put it in on top or it's going to look like it's on top. I mean, if you apply color to the background and it's overwriting the trunk or leaves or whatever, it's covering a portion of that, it is going to ruin the feeling of the distance that it's trying to get, because of, you'll see the layer, at least maybe not consciously, subconsciously, somehow your eyes pick that up. At least I think so. And so I really like to do the background as much as I can and put objects over the top of it, or leave it, if possible, use the resist and just leave it white. That's the ideal way to go. But with something like a pine tree, you'd have to complete it 100% with the resist and then do your background and then remove it all. And since you can see through part of the tree, that's kind of hard to do too. So this is my procedure here, is to working light from dark. I am putting in some limbs, but I add a whole lot more as I go along. And I try to build the tree as though I'm working from the back side of it to the top, or to the side that's closest to us. And so in doing that, I feel as I can control the steps best, and I won't overdo it, because I'm going light to dark. Of course, it's always easier to go light to dark. You can control that. Going dark to light, that's a challenge. So what I'm going to do here is just continue with that process, and then fill in with some limbs, and eventually I'm going to be working myself down to the ground level here and putting in a bunch of rocks. It's kind of like a high plateau of rocks right before you drop off into the canyon, and those are all pretty light, but they are cliffs, and they do have some faces on there that are kind of interesting, and I'll get to that toward the end of this video, where I'll have started that. And So you can follow this and watch as I build it up. And I'm not certain that I'm going to complete the trees 100% before I get into those rocks. Let's see how it goes. But sometimes it's nice to get off of one area and work in another to help you get your perspective back, and walk away from it, see what you think of the color, see what you think of the overall impact of it, and you can judge things like, is it too dominant? Does it need to be subdued? How far away? Can we see the focus on this? Should it be? And occasionally, like with the tree in the distance there, I actually felt like I had too much detail in that you could see a lot of the brushstrokes for the little pine needles and stuff, and actually from a distance of about whatever it would be, like it could be as far as 50 yards, 30, 40, 50 yards. I don't think you could see it that clearly. So maybe the one to the right of it as you're coming up the hill, a little more detail. But that one I had to add water on top. After it dried, I added just plain water over the top of some of the stuff that I had painted. Let it sit there for a second, and then just very lightly, real soft brush, just kind of soften up those lines. And it doesn't take much movement of the brush, and it will kind of blur out the edges a little bit. And I mean just a little bit. I don't want to do it a lot. So just let water sit there, and then you can just touch it with a really soft bristle and see what you're getting, and it will kind of take the edge off the lines and soften them up. So it does what our eye does for distance. It kind of mushes things together to an extent. We're not capable of focusing with the depth of field of certain cameras, for example, or most cameras. I'm used to the old school, controlling that instead of the automatic mode that we have on everything today. But cameras in general now, they will focus on a really gigantic depth of field. In other words, things way off in the distance will be sharp, and the things in your foreground are also sharp. And of course, our eyes don't work that way. So I try to paint more like the human eye perceives, and not like a camera can perceive. So when you have your resource materials, you're looking at some of those photos and you're thinking, well, that's really sharp focus there, and you'll create more depth and a kind of a better perspective if you paint like the eye rather than the camera. In other words, how the eye interprets distance. And so I try to keep that in mind too. So some of that stuff way in the distance, I want it to be lighter, and I want it not to be too distinct. Well, I talk a lot about that, so I'm going to move on. And you can watch me, and I'm working closer and closer to the foreground here, so I'm trying to create more texture in things too. So some of the wood, for example, on the stump here in the front, and limbs and stuff will have more texture to it, and also the rock faces that are on this cliff here in the foreground. You'll see quite a bit more texture and crags and accents and highlights and stuff. Okay, well, again, I'm going to speed things up. These videos can get a little too long if I don't accelerate it, and as much as I like to talk about it, I'm not sure that I can impart more. I mean, what you're seeing is a very slow progression in real time, so it's probably more effective if I speed it up a bit, and also it'll take a little time off the video, otherwise you're going to tire, and we don't want that. So I'm glad you could stick with me here on this one. This will take us to the end with some music and some accelerated video, and then I'll be moving right across the picture plane, and on my next one we'll include more of the rocks in the foreground and some of the things that are happening on the left side of the picture, which are also rocky areas in the foreground. Okay, here we go.